Ooh, let's see my gray hair. Hi everyone. Wow, I wanted to do this last week, but COVID got the better of the entire household and basically did us all in. Um, wow, what an interesting day. I never thought I'd see the day when Ben Roethlisberger retired from football. When Ben was drafted as the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I was in college. I was working at Target. Not have any idea how my life's gonna go, and then getting married, 2 kids later. Basically met my wife around the same time as Ben got drafted, and my son this year is going to be a teenager. So, it's interesting how someone being around is like a steady constant, even though, it's the game of football and not, real life, it's entertainment, but still, he's been around a long time. I mean, you don't think about kind of how long someone's just been around, whether it's someone that you root for sport wise or, someone that entertains you in movies and TV or whatever. But the guy's been around for a long time. So it's crazy to think that Ben will not be the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers anymore. I can't remember the last time, look, I lived through the Tommy Maddox era and the Cordell Stewart era and the, kind of the various other journeyman quarterbacks, your Mike Tomczaks, your Kent Grahams, your, you name it. But with Ben, he was always that steady constant. And look, you can talk about, the controversies and obviously, someone that he did right the ship. He was there was no trouble coming from him in the last decade, but obviously early controversies are always gonna, that'll be the first thing people bring up to tear you down. And look, Ben brought that upon himself. But at the same time, the guy was a steady, reliable quarterback for the most part and put up a Hall of Fame resume. They talk about Rivers getting in the Hall of Fame and Eli getting in the Hall of Fame, and kind of the idea that maybe some of them, maybe not be first ballot. I think they'll all be first ballot. But Ben is the only quarterback that I can remember, and maybe I haven't paid attention before, where the Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame on Twitter, is putting out his resume. They're putting out his Hall of Fame resume, and they're like, his eligibility is 2027. I don't remember them doing that for Eli. I don't remember them doing that for Rivers. So it's interesting to see. It's interesting to see what the Steelers are going to look like heading into the 2022 season. It really conflicted kind of on what the Steelers should do, what the Steelers have to do. They definitely, the one thing about not having to pay a quarterback $20 million. Look at that hair. One thing he really needs a haircut. But the good thing about not paying a quarterback $20 million is that you can pay everybody else. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to have to, figure some things out. And you watch that game, and really the playoffs kind of all year for the AFC, and you watch Mahomes and Allen slinging it out, and you saw the, for those that don't remember the young Ben, they might remember old Ben now, but young Ben, man, he was pretty good. He was pretty good in his day. He was the one that was scrambling out there, making plays, making things happen, gunslinging, doing all the stuff. He was doing that. So the Steelers, I feel, can find someone that will keep them competitive for the next decade. Will it be this season? Who's to say? I think that Mason Rudolph and what are you drinking?
Water.
Oh, okay. I think that Rudolph and Haskins will get the first crack. Granted, they don't make a trade for someone, and they don't bring in someone off free agency. And I'm curious to see what Rudolph was given the keys. I know people have kind of written him off, and understandably so, given his play previously. But could it be that, similar to Jordan Love in Green Bay with Rodgers, that Ben didn't necessarily embrace Mason Rudolph being there? Could it be that without Ben there, that Mason may have more confidence in being able to take the reins and be a capable quarterback? I mean, he was certainly a capable college quarterback. Or is he just what he is? Is he just going to be some guy that will never end up being, just a mid-range, low-end starter that may get you, what the seems the Steelers can do, which is about 8 wins, 9 wins, maybe occasional playoff sneak, and a one-round exit. Is that something he's capable of? Perhaps. Or you give the keys to Haskins. Obviously, Tomlin made a lot of comments in the post-game press conference about mobility, that he is mobile, that he can certainly run with the ball a bit. They said that's basically what the NFL is at this point. You look at Allen, you look at Mahomes, you look at Russell Wilson and Lamar Jackson and all these guys that have mobility, but can also throw a good ball. Well, with the exception of Lamar Jackson occasionally. But it's going to be interesting to see what the Steelers end up doing about the quarterback. Now, this draft versus years past, there's not that great quarterback class heading out here. If there's any guy that I would want out of this quarterback class, it would be Kenny Pickett. Not just because, of the pick connection, but because he's probably the tallest of the bunch. You see some of these guys coming out, they're tiny. A lot of them. A lot of people were talking about how they're talking about what's his face, the guy from Liberty, but they're little. They're 6'1", both of them 6'1", and and look, there's been the Russell Wilsons of the world, there's been the Drew Breeses of the world, small guys that can actually end up. They can end up being a quality quarterback, but not somebody that I trust with. Not somebody, sadly, that I trust, for the Steelers to be a decades-long quarterback. The one thing about Ben, you give him credit. I mean, the man took a beating, an absolute beating. I mean, there's making those rounds today. I remember going to the training camp, and one of those years where Ben had the Ace Bandage ice pack on both his knees, both his elbows, both his shoulders, and like almost like a cup between like the elbows and stuff to, the dude took a pounding, so a little guy, I don't know if that's going to be somebody that's going to, make the long, are we going to get a quarterback that's going to be around for another 18 years? Not if they pick one of these little guys coming out this year. You don't know how, then again, like I said, you might get a rare exception, like a Drew Brees, who ended up having, a nice career, or Russell Wilson, these real small guys. But for the most part, a lot of these guys coming out are tiny. And I talked with my friend about it. Pickett has tiny little baby hands. And, who's to say, he's not a fumble, just constantly getting it knocked out of his hand, because, you talk about who you play at Pitt, and occasionally they play, nice level competition, but you're playing that nice level competition every week. Now, luckily, he doesn't have to go against TJ Watt, but think about the guy that's coming over the edge and just smacking that ball out of your hands. You got tiny little hands. you might not be able to handle the rigors of a season for 10, 15, 20 years. You know, that's the first priority for the Pittsburgh Steelers is they're going to need to find a quarterback. And who's to say that Rudolph and Haskins can't be it, at least as a bridge, for a season, hopefully just one season, because the crop of QBs coming out in that following season is way better. There's a nice, better crop of QBs. And look, if Haskins or if Rudolph lead them to a mediocre, subpar season, then you have a chance to get a better quarterback. You kind of know what you have. The one thing I can say about that is that since you already have Haskins and you have Rudolph and you have them both on roster, then you can spend the bunch of money that you have free agency. You have nice piles of money, and yes, there are people that are going to be asking for money. You have to decide when you want to pick up Devin Bush's fifth-year option based on this year's play. No, unfortunately, you have to decide whether you want to keep Joe Schobert, who apparently they said this was one of the worst contracts in the NFL. If it were me, he's gone. You save like 8 or 9 million, something like that. Same with Zach Banner. Zach Banner, they signed him good money to be one of the main tackles, and even when he was healthy, he wasn't one of the main tackles. He wasn't even a swing tackle. I don't think he ever took the field. Maybe for like a partial of a game, but like he wasn't on field. It was a waste of money. He's got to be gone. What's to do about Tuitt? I went back and forth with my one friend about this, about Tuitt. Who's to say? Who am I to say? And he was right on this because I watched I think Chiefs game, and they were talking about, I think, L'Jarius Sneed, I believe it was, and he was saying how he lost his brother, how his brother was like a father figure to him, and he lost him tragically, and he dedicated the season to him, and yet Tuitt had a similar situation, and you never saw him. Mental health is difficult, and it sounds like, at least the tea leaves and the rumors, is that that Tuitt is going to probably hang it up, retire. And, if that's the case, then so be it. Good for him. It's one of those things where obviously, that clearly affected him to the point that he wants to hang up his career at 28. But look, that it's not the first time that something like that's happened. It won't be the last. But, it's weird how it seems that no one seemed to know what was going on with Tuitt. They still don't know what's going on with Tuitt. And, how long can you keep that around, to decide whether you want to move on from him or if he wants to just hang it up and retire. It doesn't seem like the cap savings is all that much with Tuitt. About 3 to 4 million, something like that, which isn't enough to, I would say, move on from him. If he wants to play, you keep him in the fold, and hopefully he'll give you a nice season. Certainly would help with the run defense that they just have had. They got trampled this season. They were atrocious. Now there are a lot of injuries on that front. But here's the one knock I will say about the Steelers. Why does it seem, we're talking about replacements for Ben, and can we find someone that can do that? But what about a replacement for Casey Hampton? It's been a long time since the Steelers kind of had a big name guy that can take on two blockers, big defender, big run stuffer up the middle. It's been a long time. I saw Hargrave made the Pro Bowl as a replacement, and I miss him in Pittsburgh. Definitely miss him being able to get through the line and get the quarterback. But I will say that they haven't had anybody that's been that kind of run stuffing filler guy in the middle. Tyson Alualu had shown it time, but he's 35 years old. He's not that young anymore, and clearly got injured right out of the gate. and you never saw him again, unfortunately. Now, it sounds like he's coming back this year, but I would like Alualu to groom the, hopefully, nose tackle of the future, which unfortunately is not on roster at this point. They're going to have to either draft someone or they're going to have to sign a free agent. This would be the year amongst all Steelers years where they're going to have to sign some free agents, and they have the money to do so. But one thing I would like them to get is a giant nose tackle that they haven't had in a considerable amount of time, like I said, since Casey Hampton, to stuff the run. That run defense was terrible this year, just really bad. So they're going to have to find someone that's going to be able to stop that run. And I saw a mock draft. Interestingly enough, I saw a mock draft. It seems like everybody's mocking a lot of offensive linemen to the Steelers, and rightfully so. I think the Kendrick Green experiment at center has kind of run its course. I think the Steelers know that. I think that, Ben alluded to that, on his way out. I think that he's going to be moved to guard, which is a more natural position that I think he can flourish at. But they're going to need a center. Now, Iowa has that giant center coming out, Lindenbaum, whose comps have gone all over the place. They're all over the place. They're going from... I saw him getting taken as high as 6. I think it's one of the Eagles' first-round picks. They have 3 of them before the Steelers pick. The Philadelphia Eagles have 3 first-round picks before the Steelers even get on the board to pick one guy. But they had them taking Lindenbaum with one of those picks because Kelsey for them is getting old. But I think the Steelers, I wouldn't mind them taking Lindenbaum at 20, even if there are some other quarterbacks on the board, because I don't know if you get your quarterback of the future in this draft. I don't think that you do. And like I said, unless it's Pickett, I could see them taking Pickett. I could see them taking Pickett if Lindenbaum is hair's crazy. If Lindenbaum is gone, I could see them taking a few other players. I did like the one mock draft where someone had them taking a nose tackle in the first round because of them getting gashed against the run, and I wouldn't mind it. They said this dude's like just a mauler and a monster. And when's the last time the Steelers, put that draft capital in a nose tackle? It's been some time. So probably since Hargrave have they, drafted a DT in the first few rounds. And who's to say they can't get one in the first? Now, obviously, they do need a lot of offensive line help, like a ton of offensive line help. But, if Lindenbaum's not there, you have to decide what you want to do, whether you go quarterback and you try to go Pickett, whether you go tackle, whether you go nose tackle. There's a lot of places they can go. And it'll be interesting to see what they do in free agency. Free agency is going to be really big for the Steelers this year. I think they're going to be making a lot of moves. Now, are they going to spend the money that the Patriots did last year where they went wild and the Patriots spent like $60 million in a day on all these guys, and even some of the guys they signed were not like the tip-top guys, but they put a lot of money into free agency last year and did get them back to the playoffs. But, of course, with the arm of a rookie quarterback. So what do the Steelers do? What are they going to do? It'll be interesting to see what the Steelers are going to do. I'm not sure, to be honest, if you draft a quarterback this year. I'm kind of wary of it. I think that I like Pickett. Let's put it this way. I like Pickett. I just don't know if Pickett's your long-term guy. Is he better than Rudolph? Is he better than Haskins? Probably better than both of them. But I don't know if Pickett is just a guy that can handle the rigors for a decade. A lot of people think that Pickett has already reached his ceiling and he's not going to get any better, and he'll probably only get worse. Or, there's people that have him like a Diet Coke Joe Burrow, that he looks the part, He acts the part. Can he play the Joe Burrow part, like a discount Joe Burrow, and hold up that well? I don't know if that's the case. I don't think that's the case. But I'm wondering what the Steelers are going to do in free agency. I wonder if there's all this talk about them trading for a quarterback. I can tell you right now that Rodgers thing isn't happening. The Steelers are not trading significant draft capital for Rodgers. Rodgers is, he's a year younger than Ben. Ben just retired. Rodgers has had one foot out of the door for years. Plus, what are the Packers going to be asking for Rodgers? I saw something today on one of the media, or maybe it wasn't today, maybe it's yesterday, earlier this week, that they were going to offer the Steelers, they said to get Rodgers that the Steelers would have to offer 3 number 1 picks. No. Not 3 number 1 picks. Absolutely not. The Steelers will not be offering 3 number 1s to get Rodgers. And I get that Rodgers and Tomlin have been flirting. More Rodgers than Tomlin have been flirting on the Pat McAfee show and how he loves Pittsburgh and all that. Now, if the asking price is, say, a 1 and a 3, if it's less than a 1, if it's like a 2 or, 2 2s or, a 3 and a 5, Rodgers might end up winning MVP this season. But Rodgers is also old, and that has to be taken into consideration. Now, there's going to be a lot of QBs on the move. Russell Wilson might be on the move. I saw that the Eagles, they said the Eagles have 3 number 1s. All 3 number 1s that the Eagles have for Wilson. And they said, who would scoff? They said, would the Eagles scoff? Or would the Seahawks scoff? And I would say if you're the Seahawks, you take it. I would take that. If you're the Eagles, I don't know if I'd give up that many picks. I mean, Hurts has been okay. They were 1 and done in the playoffs. Hurts has been fine, but, are the Steelers giving 3 number 1s for Russell Wilson? No. He's on the wrong side of 30, and he has not been playing. Well, it's been on the wrong side of 30. He's like 31. But he's not. I just don't know if I would give up 3 number 1 picks for Russell Wilson as it stands now. You're not getting the Russell Wilson that was in a few Super Bowls a few years back. You're getting Russell Wilson that has not had great he's had some good seasons, but, some early exits in the playoffs, some underachieving teams that didn't make the playoffs. So you don't kind of know what you're getting in Russell Wilson. If you knew you were getting, 7, 8, 9 quality years out of Russell Wilson, and that's your QB of the future and beyond, I don't know if I still consider 3 1s. Now, what about Deshaun Watson with all his baggage and all his issues? He's still 25, 26. He's still in the prime of his career, I guess you could say. He didn't play this year. I'm going to assume the Texans are going to want big capital for him. Or is he damaged goods? Are they going to just not end up dealing a first and a third? Or they not, is it something like that? Or are they going to want 3 1s for, maybe they wanted 3 1s this season. That's why he never moved. I think like the only buyer was the Dolphins, and even the Dolphins weren't necessarily buying. And it's weird. It seems that the Dolphins said that they weren't interested in Deshaun Watson, but then it got to the point out in the media where it said that the Texans weren't interested in Tua as a return for Watson. So if, let's say, the Watson got traded to the Dolphins, let's say that ends up happening. Let's say that ends up becoming a thing. Watson gets traded to the Dolphins, and then Tua becomes expendable. What if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, would you like them to? Because that would be the kind of move that the Steelers would make. Take a look at like the Fitzpatrick deal. They saw a guy that was 1 year plus removed from the draft, and they traded up nice capital to get a young guy that was still on his rookie deal. Would that be the case with Tua? Would that be the case if the Dolphins trade, say, 3 number ones or whatever they end up trading, and they get Watson and Tua becomes expendable to them? Obviously, they'll want to trade him to get some of that draft capital back. If you're the Steelers, you take a flyer on Tua. I think you do. I would. I certainly would. Now, what I would trade for him, would I trade a 1? I don't know about that. But you're telling me some couple mid-round picks? Sure, why not? Player, maybe, depending on the player. Certainly wouldn't be sending Watt their way. But I think that's a deal that can be made. But obviously, it's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be an interesting offseason to see what they do from the quarterback position on down. That's right, Derpy. End of an era, man. It's wild. It is wild to think that Ben will not be the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wild for me. I just, said I've known him half my life. Half my life, he's been the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm a little bit older than that, but just about. I mean, pretty close. Let's put it that way. It's pretty close. Within a few years, that he's been the quarterback of the Steelers. But what's to do now? What do they do this offseason? Let's put it this way. And I was talking about this the other night. You have the Steelers. They invest top free agent money into their team this year. You bring back some guys, and there's a list. I think I have that on my phone. There is a mighty list of Steelers free agents that are out there. It's wild. So Steelers unrestricted free agents. You got Ben, obviously Ben, packed it in today. You have Juju. Do you bring Juju back? How much do you bring Juju back for? Do you bring him back in another 1 year, $8 million? I see it starting to trickle out now that Juju is kind of interested in going to the Chiefs. That's the team that he denied last year. But I think he's seeing the writing on the wall that the Chiefs are going to be around for years to come. And, he wants his ring. He wants his endorsements. He wants his deals. And obviously with Ben walking, that might be enough for Juju to go play somewhere else. Unless the Steelers figure out a QB, unless they bring someone in that's enticing enough. But, I think Juju could easily stay as well. Just a matter of he might want multi-year money. I don't think he's going to play in a 1 year deal again. But he signed a 1 year prove it, got injured, really wasn't able to prove it, sadly. Tyrell Edmonds, do you bring him back or no? Is he durable? Yes. Did he have an OKC? He is a low to mid at best starting safety. 5 to 10 year rebuild, just like the 80s, 90s. Man, that is a bleak image there. I don't know. I don't know if I feel like they can right the ship pretty quickly, but obviously that very much depends on the QB that you're bringing in, and what QB you're bringing in. I think that even if you put a lot of free agent dollars into bringing new guys, returning guys, that it only works with a proper QB. With Rudolph back there, with Haskins back there, that'll be enough to get a team that probably will end up being, 8-8 at best. Or 8-9 at best, 9-8, whatever the thing is. It's not something that, I don't think that they're going to be the QBs of the future, either of them. I think they're going to get this season unless something crazy happens. But Ben, is gone. Juju, I think they should re-sign depending on the money. Tyrell Edmonds. See, I don't know if I bring Edmonds back. I know a lot of people, think I just Edmonds played exactly like what his draft scouting report was. He was a third round guy that they drafted in the first round for some reason, and he plays like a third round guy. Makes a couple tackles, makes a few plays, doesn't make hardly any interceptions, looks bad at times, looks awful at other times, gets beat a lot, a ton, makes good tackles. He's durable. I don't know if I'd bring Edmonds back, but what's the alternative at this point? What do they have in the cookie jar for safeties besides Fitzpatrick? And Fitzpatrick's going to get paid. But I would like to see, keep in mind when the Steelers had Polamalu, they had Ryan Clark as a nice compliment for a few years. And Tyrell Edmonds ain't no Ryan Clark. He just isn't Ryan Clark. We need to have a bad few years to get great draft picks. The only way we rebuild strong. That's very true. The problem is the Steelers don't have bad years. Now I know this is a product of Ben, but Tomlin never had a losing season. Ben never had a losing season. They never draft in the top 10, which is where they grab Ben. They grab Ben at 10. It's gonna if Tomlin can't find a way to be under 8 wins, then it's going to be a tough thing getting a top guy. They're going to have to either trade some mighty capital, or they're going to have to bring in a free agent guy, or I don't know what they're going to do. They need to grab some free agents for the line, or they're wasting Harris. Grab Pickett if he's there, but don't. Yes, pass on Edmonds, force a QB in round 1, grab best lineman. So that's the thing. They're going to have to rebuild the offensive line. I think that can be done in free agency. I really do think that can be done in free agency. They have the money to do it. You put a competition at getting to right guard at this point, because the next free agent name is Trey Turner and Chuck Okafor, for that matter. Okafor, gone. Sorry. He's just not, he's got to go. Zach Banner's got to go. That right tackle can be filled by a free agent. Neither of them showed me too much this year. And Trey Turner at times was serviceable. Never looked like the 5-time Pro Bowler that he is. You can kick Kendrick Green from center to guard. I think everybody sees the writing on the wall that Green can't be the center anymore, that he has to be a guard. You bring in someone to compete with him and hope for the best. And already you have a retooled O-line, but you're going to need a center. You're really going to need a center. That Lindenbaum kid from Iowa, if you can get him, is the center. That might be the pick. Similar to what you said, I talked about Pickett earlier. Pickett's probably the biggest quarterback of all the quarterbacks in the draft. If you look at some of these quarterbacks, they are tiny. Howell's tiny. Malik Willis from Liberty, he's tiny. And Pickett's 6'3", but he got the tiny little baby hands. And the problem with that is that you're going to run into NFL competition, and can those hands sustain? I like Pickett. I hope Pickett can be the goods. But the question is, if I'm staring at Lindenbaum at 20 and Pickett at 20, I think I go Lindenbaum as the center of the future, and hope you can get 10 plus years out of him. Just that long lineage of Steelers centers, and you put a Band-Aid back there for a season, like a Rudolph, like a Haskins, and then if he tanks, next year's a better QB draft class. Now, if Lindenbaum's gone and Pickett's there at 20, maybe you take Pickett, or you take one of the tackles. You definitely got to rebuild the O-line in some way. Rudolph is serviceable. Good backup at worst. We need to sign Hunt for sure. The 1-year option thing for GM is not beneficial to both parties. Rudolph. I wonder about Rudolph in terms of him. I don't think Ben handled it well when Rudolph got the gig. Rudolph got drafted. I don't think Ben handled that well. I think Ben thought he had, ton of years left, and he felt they could have used that pick on, probably another offensive guy. It's the same Aaron Rodgers story or Brett Favre story, as it were. And you wonder, with Ben out of the way, if Rudolph can realize his full potential, because Rudolph was amazing out of college. Him and James Washington were terrific, and neither of them really achieved for the Steelers. Let's see. I agree, Lindenbaum. Sorry, got you covered with some of this stuff. Just got a fork. Love the discussion. No worries, sir. No worries. I appreciate you checking in and commenting. Always great to have feedback during one of these. But yeah, it's really interesting. It's really interesting how many directions that the Steelers can go, what they can do, what they should do, what they obviously you have a point now where the Steelers can go in a variety of different directions. When you don't have a quarterback that, you don't have your franchise guy, there's a lot of avenues to take. It's weird when when you're paying a guy like a Mahomes, for example, like Josh Allen, or like these big giant contracts, even a Kirk Cousins who's making just an unreal amount of money. When you're paying guys like that, you can't really pay anyone else. And now with Ben's contract off the books, you can suddenly pay some people. You can get some positions filled, positions that they were not able to fill, not able to put the top dollars in, that you can. I think I can't remember what Steelers. One of the Steelers articles, I can't remember who it was, did like a whole off-season review, and it really put into perspective, one, if the Steelers really wanted to spend some money, they could. I think they had them signing J.C. Jackson. J.C. Jackson from the Patriots, which is one of the top prizes in free agency, to giant money. I think it was like 4 years, 64. And they had him bringing back Juju. They had him bringing back Hayden. They had him bringing back Edmonds. They had him bringing back all these different guys, and paying Fitzpatrick, and bringing not just J.C. Jackson, but they added Trent Brown for the Patriots as a tackle. They added, was it Norwell? Norwell, the guard. Quite a few free agent signings. I think Leighton Vander Esch from Dallas, if I remember correctly, or maybe that was one they were checking into. But a safety, like a nice name safety. I can't remember who the name was, but man, they had, and this, they factored in like, oh, the Steelers have their, $10 million they bring into the season, and the draft money, and the practice squad money, and all that stuff will be taken care of, and signing all those guys. Now, of course, that isn't, that offseason is them not bringing in a quarterback. They're not trading for a guy. They're not, maybe drafting a guy at that point, unless Lindenbaum's there. You can rebuild an O-line pretty quickly with money. You can, I still think you do need a nose tackle of the future. I don't think they'll take him in the first round, because that's just they always say like, oh, a guy who plays 2 snaps, why would you take him in the first round? Well, Aaron Donald is a guy. Now, is there an Aaron Donald in this draft, or really any draft? Does it exist? No. No, there's no one like Aaron Donald. But man, do they need a nose tackle bad. Thoughts on Aaron Rodgers? A lot think he'll bring Adams with him. Kind of puts us back in cap issue purgatory. Plus, Rodgers isn't close to Ben's age. Oh, so yeah, I was talking about this. Rodgers is a year younger than Ben. He's 1 year younger. Now, Rodgers doesn't have the wear that Ben did by any stretch. Now, Rodgers got beat up a little bit, sure. But he does not have the wear and tear that Ben did at this age. So he's a younger 38 than Ben is at 39. The problem is that what are you giving up for a 38-year-old? And as you said, bringing in Aaron Rodgers, bringing in Devontae Adams, you're already in cap hell. The only way this works is if you find a way to bring in Rodgers and he takes that Brady deal that it seems that only Brady takes and no one else takes, where he'll be like, yeah, I'll play for like 10 million, and they somehow like sneak his money through some other avenue. But Adams ain't taking that. Adams going to be one paid like the top wide receiver in the league. Now, don't get me wrong. You put Rodgers and Adams on this team, you shore up the offensive line. You already have a better receiving crew, whether you bring back Juju or not. What Rodgers has Devontae Adams, but what he does not have, he doesn't have a Claypool. He doesn't have a Deontay Johnson. Even if you, so say you bring Juju back, it's a nice 4 receiver set right there, and Freiermuth as the tight end. Man, this guy, who knows he was thrown to in the divisional game, tight end. Tanyan even, Tanyan is their regular tight end, and even he's, you got him and Mercedes Lewis, not necessarily, gangbuster tight end crew, but that's a nice retooled offense there. But the problem is that, as you say, Rodgers has highway miles, but what is Green Bay going to want for Rodgers? Rodgers is still under contract with Green Bay. It's not like he's a free agent. You can just bring him in. They're going to want, like, crazy stuff. They're going to want, like, 3 number ones. This is what they're going to want. They're not going to get it, but they're going to want it. I don't know if I'd give away 3 number ones for a guy that's only 1 year younger than your quarterback that just retired. Regardless of whether he has highway miles or not, that is a scary proposition. So I don't think I would do that. I think that's just too much. Now they said the same thing about Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, 3 number 1 picks. He's younger, significantly younger, but the question is that I don't know if I give away 3 number 1 picks for him. Just give me Winston or Trubinsky as the bridge for a few years. That's a perspective that we haven't talked about just yet. The second level guys. We've talked about Rodgers. We've talked about Watson and all the crazy scenarios there. We've talked about Russell Wilson and all these guys. But we haven't talked about the second tier guys. A lot of people are putting Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr as names, but what about the third tier options? Your Jameis Winston, your Mitch Trubisky, your Marcus Mariota, those guys where it's just like, here's a guy that, if you give him a second, it's a second chance for a lot of them. With Winston, it's a third chance. I don't know. Winston has always kind of underachieved for me. He didn't do great with the Saints. Keep in mind, he had a nice season with that last year in Tampa Bay, but it was also like it was 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, like just unprecedented interception numbers. So I don't know about Wilson. Trubisky intrigues me because Trubisky got a bad rap in Chicago. They kind of ran him out of town, and all the dude did was go to the playoffs. Now, did they underachieve in the playoffs? Sure, they underachieved in the playoffs. But what do the Steelers do every year? They underachieve in the playoffs as well. Now, do you want to bring in a young quarterback who's going to underachieve in the playoffs, just like the Steelers have the last few years? Of course. When you're talking about underachieving in the playoffs, you might as well include Aaron Rodgers in that as well, because Aaron Rodgers has underachieved in the playoffs. That Super Bowl 45, the last time the Steelers had a shot at the winner, I remember it well. That was a long time ago. That was the last time Rodgers did anything. He made it to some championship games. He made it to some divisionals. Never really got past there. Always underachieved. I have concerns for a young QB with no line. 100%. There is no way the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether they go Rudolph, whether they go a third tier, a second tier, a first tier, a drafted QB, I don't care what they do, there is no way that they can go into this season with a shoddy line that they had this year. There's no way. I don't know if they thought that they were super high on Okafor or they were super high on Zach Banner, but I just don't know. I don't know what the thought process was. Keep in mind, when they drafted Dan Moore, who ended up being their starting right tackle for the whole season, he wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be Zach Banner. Zach Banner never took the field hardly this year. I don't know what they were thinking. But Zach Banner needs to be gone. There's no way you can trust that dude to be the team. No way you can trust Okafor. They both have to be gone. And you have to bring in some O-line help via free agency, I feel, via the draft and free agency. And your first round pick, you Steelers always like to take best available. It's what they've done for the Colbert era. Whether or not Colbert's retiring or not, that's another thing. John Clayton came in and said, this is Colbert's last one. He's leaving right after the draft. And then John Clayton pops in a couple weeks later and goes, there's these reports that Colbert's leaving after the draft. I don't know who said those reports. Well, John Clayton, you did. You're the one that said it. Is he the one that set this off and said that he's leaving at the end of right after the draft? And then he comes on the radio 2 weeks later and goes, well, I don't know if he's leaving after the draft. It might be another year. Okay. So I do think it was wary of. It's an odd thing when you're the GM of a team and you're like, I'm going to leave right after the draft. I'm just going to do this one last draft and then I'm gone. Setting the table for like the new GM. Obviously, a new GM will want to do their own thing. Very odd to have the new GM start right after the draft. Isn't that odd? That this previous GM started, drafted these players, drafted these guys, and then a new GM is going to come in post-draft, and they're going to try to set the table. I don't understand what the purpose of that would be. Like, I don't understand, usually a GM will get canned or they'll leave right after a season. New GM comes in, similar to GMs that are being hired around the league, and they can set the table for, they can get prepped for free agency. Get prepped for the draft. It's an odd thing when your GM goes like, hey, I'm going to just draft this team and get them all set. Then I'm going to just pack it in. So even if Colbert doesn't leave for another year, understandably so, that's an odd, weird thing to have two GMs kind of split services like that. Very interesting that Brandon Hunt is interviewing for other GM jobs now. Makes me think Colbert isn't leaving. Very true and very possible. Hunt was interviewing with Oakland. Has a good eye for talent, lobby for Fitzpatrick trade. Look, I like Hunt, and I'll be honest, I like Omar Khan. Khan, they kind of poo-poo Khan, but he is a cap wizard. He has got us out of a jam. Think about the money the Steelers have shuffled around over the last few years. They've shuffled around a good bit of money, and Omar Khan is the one that's getting those cap figures right. Now, what does he know about players that Brandon Hunt knows about players? Does he know the same thing? They both have their strengths. They both have their weaknesses. Can you keep both? Can you keep, let's say they give Hunt the gig and Omar Khan walks. Are you going to be as good? Are you going to be as good being able to kind of mix that cap around to your advantage? Say Khan gets it and Brandon Hunt goes. Is Khan going to know the ins and the outs of free agents and, eye for talent in the draft? Who's to say? It's going to be quite the roller coaster for the Steelers in this offseason. It's more intriguing than probably any offseason I can remember. Not just look behind the scenes, with a GM potential search and a QB search and a lot of free agent money to play with and potential retirements, looming. Tuitt put his home bid. Tuitt may end up being gone. That may be a surprise retirement. I don't think it's a surprise to me. I think the writing's on the wall. But they got a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of work to be done for the Steelers this offseason, and I'm here for it. I am here. I am excited for it. I hope they come out like gangbusters day one and just start signing the top guys just for fun. Let's say, here's a question. If you give Rudolph all the support, let's say you don't make a move for QB and you're giving, Rudolph or Haskins or, whoever else you bring in to bring in another guy, and you rebuild a line and you rebuild in defense and you retool and you get the players together and you sign the players that you have to sign. I mean, can this team function better with a younger guy? Now, Ben made some mighty throws. He made some. I still think about that one in Minnesota to tie the game that Freiermuth dropped, and he dropped because he got hit by three separate players. But there were three players closing in. I might have mentioned this before, and Ben put it on the button, right on his hands, to make the play. Now, it was to tie the game. It wasn't to take over the game, but it wasn't to take a lead. But man, Ben still had the goods to make those throws every once in a while. Now, Ben also made some questionable throws, and his deep ball was kind of waning. Can a younger guy, a Rudolph or a Haskins, run with Matt Canada's offense? Matt Canada's offense was terrible. They got rid of Randy Fichtner to bring in Canada, and Canada's offense was worse. Much worse. It just wasn't good. There were some questionable choices, some questionable play calls. It's hard to tell sometimes whether the Steelers, whether, Canada or Ben was calling plays at times. It seemed to flow better when it seems like Ben took the game into his own hands, and Canada seemed to call a lot of odd balls, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of screens. Will he do that with a younger guy? Or will a younger guy have a better grip of the offense because they can occasionally be mobile, occasionally keep the defense honest, whereas, Ben kind of in the last few years was just, for the most part, just basically a statue back there. Because I'm watching some of young Ben highlights, since he announced his retirement today, and the guy was running around. Like I said, he was Allen before Allen. He was Mahomes before Mahomes. He was doing all that crazy stuff when it was not considered normal. He wasn't that way the last few years. And, it's nice to see Ben, pack it in. I appreciate the memories and stuff that he gave, but they're going to need a younger guy. They're going to need a younger guy, whether you, keep Canada's offense or you get rid of it, bring in a new offensive coordinator. It's a young man's game, sadly. And unless you have a Rodgers that's going to be, slinging it, or someone that just could put the ball on the button each and every time, you're going to have a hard time if you don't have a younger, mobile quarterback. It's so hard to tell with play calling. A lot of poor execution made it even more murky. I heard Butler deferred to Tomlin for a lot of play calling too. Yeah. So Keith Butler never called a defensive play his entire time with the Steelers. They even said, and I know a lot of people were like, they said when Tomlin came in, he took over the defensive play calling, even from LeBeau. When LeBeau was there. But keep in mind, LeBeau was with the Steelers, and they're like, I can't believe he would take it from LeBeau. Look, he came in as a defensive coach. Look at the four teams that are in the AFC and NFC championship respectively now. Sean McVay calls all his offensive plays. Their offensive coordinator does not call offensive plays. Andy Reid calls offensive plays for the Chiefs. The offensive coordinator for the Chiefs does not call their own plays. There are a lot of coaches that call their particular whatever scheme they're brought in for calls plays. So it's not uncommon, but at the same time as Keith Butler got all this crap, and the problem is that was probably fell on Tomlin's feet, especially with some of these defenses this year. Look, the Steelers have led the league in sacks the last 5 years. They have been great getting the quarterback. They have been terrible in the secondary for the most part. Just not a great secondary. Get burned a lot, leave a lot of guys open. And they got gashed by the run this year. I said it very early in the stream. You need a nose tackle. You need a nose tackle real bad. Though they're running up the gut on you, and you're just getting just blazed by they're just the offensive line is just opening things up. You need a guy that can take two offensive linemen and hold the block on them, or burrow through. Whether you trade for someone, whether you get a bring in a free agent, whether you just need to bring in someone this year that's going to be able to be a solid nose tackle. You're just going to need to. It's a need. That is a need position. It's been a need position probably since Casey Hampton. Like I said, Hargrave was great for a season or two, but you're going to need that big run stuffer. Say your Fletcher Cox type, your Gerald McCoy type, your Vita Vea type. That's the kind of guy you're going to need up the middle that they just don't have, and they haven't had for a long time. Oh my God. Oh. I'll tell you what, this COVID thing was no joke. I wanted to do this last week, and it was just worn out. Like, it buzzed through our entire house, and I was sleeping a lot and just miserable, and I'm still feeling it. Like, I've talked for about an hour, and my throat's like, stop. That's it. You're still not 100%. So I'm gonna wrap it up here, but let me know your thoughts if you haven't popped on live stream. Thank everybody for commenting. It's always fun when people comment in on a live stream. It helps to just keep the flow going, keep the conversation going. I do appreciate when people jump on. Makes it easier for me to be able to talk. Got just a bunch of videos coming up. I've been said sick for the past week or so here. I'm just finally starting to get better. So yeah, first week back from COVID myself, draining and still feeling exhaustion. Man, I'll tell you, Chris, I'll tell you what, man, I had pneumonia about 10 years back, and I felt way more active. I just was drained, miserable, just terrible feeling. I just did not feel like myself. Just was, it's like all these videos to do or all this stuff to do. And all these things I had to do, and I just wasn't feeling any of it. So there's just a ton of videos in the pipeline. Thanks everybody for also voting on the poll. I put up a poll that said I'm gonna start doing maybe like movie or TV reviews or different types of reviews and stuff. And thanks everybody that voted in. Kind of a wide swath of interest that I put on the poll. So I'm going to try out at least some of all of those videos and see how that works. You might even see them hopefully as soon as this weekend, depending on how I'm feeling, because there's a lot I wanted to get to. Beyond there's a card video coming up, there's a couple unboxing videos coming up. Like I said, I'm going to do some review ones as well. I would like to get to I just stumbled across a filming locations for a Netflix show that's in the area that I would like to get to. But obviously that depends on weather, that depends on how I feel, depends on a lot of things, but definitely going to try to get back in the mix and into the swing of things. Thanks everyone that supports the little channel, whether you watch, whether you comment, like the videos, everything means a ton. Just means so much to me. It's always a great feeling. It feels like you're not alone in all this, that you watch my stuff, and I appreciate everybody who chimes in on these lives. It makes it awesome. But guys, thanks so much for watching. And until the next video, of which there hopefully will be several soon, I will see you soon. End of an era for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ben's gone. Man, I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it till this morning when I saw the video. And man, it's going to be interesting to say the least. But I'm here for it. I might do another live stream for free agency. where, depending on what they end up doing in free agency, if they end up making a lot of moves and kind of going gangbusters, I might do one for free agency. I will always come back for my yearly mock draft, usually about a week before the draft. But long off season for the Steelers, but going to be an interesting one. Thanks everyone for chiming in, and I will see you all very soon in another one. Nice talking to you. Bye, everyone.